manage the day-to-day schedule, and we work closely with the producer to make sure deadlines are hit and bring up any like little issues that need dealt with. We help to train the PAs and PCs and basically just make sure that deadlines are hit, and that we work closely with the creative team too, to see if they need anything. So we're a big major like support for them. Ashley, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, we're a lot of tracking deadlines and a lot of communication just between all of our artists, the rest of production. People tend to send us a lot of individual messages, a lot of group messages. We just try to keep track of everyone and make sure people can focus on what their jobs are so they don't have to look at the bigger picture. We try to deal with that for them.
How would you guys describe like what production is for TV animation?
Yeah, I mean, at Cartoon Network, I would say we're dealing with basically everything from pre-production all the way through delivery and post. So I can just run through like the basics, like stages and stuff with Ash. Because the thing is, production varies depending on the project, depending on the studio. But it does start with writing an idea, of course. And you go into boards and records and animatics. You have timers and designers, and you ship all these materials overseas. And so that's the pre-production stage, and that's about like a 7 to 9 month process roughly. And then the production stage is roughly like, again, it depends on the project, but it's like 3 to 5 months roughly, and that's the actual animation. And we use studios overseas, like in Korea. There's other studios. For us, it's Korea. There's other studios in like Japan, Philippines, Canada, like India, all over the place. And then they send us a work print, and we look those over, and we give retakes. And so the overseas studios, they revise basically based on our notes. And then we do composing, and so this is all the post process, composing and sound, and then picture editing. Ash, I don't know if you want to get more into any of this.
That's pretty much the basis, I think, of every TV crew. There's always going to be a little bit of leeway, and everyone's allocation of certain weeks are going to be different depending on the project. For instance, Apple and Onion is a flash show. We don't use timers because we can give our animatics directly to our non-overseas studio who's actually in Canada. So we have time allocated for other things, like more on the post-production side. But generally, we do have about the same amount of artists and the same amount of people we oversee and try to help.
Cool. Well, thank you, guys. Can you guys talk about what roles are within the production team, and like kind of what's the entry point, what's the highest level?
Want me to go first this time?
Yeah, go ahead.
So at Cartoon Network, I think obviously internship is probably considered entry point, and we adore interns. We always try to include you in everything. We get them from all sorts and all kinds. We then generally move up to production assistants, and at Cartoon Network we also have digital production assistants. They help with anything that the coordinator might need. Some of them only focus on, say, recording. They help with animatic prelims, breaking down the boards with us, conforming boards. And they basically help coordinators, I feel, most of all, and will help initially with some of the art inquiries from inside the team. Production coordinators help deal with tracking a lot of the design work, a lot of the pre-production, and they help see through post-production too. Depending on the crew or the project, coordinators can be divided up into only pre-production and only post-production, or sometimes they're what we consider even and odd episodes. So they're given something to see all the way through, from tracking designs, sending to the shipments, and handling any inquiries from overseas. So coordinators, I think, have a bit more liaison work with people within and outside the studio. And they also employ the help of our PAs, and they talk up to production managers and the line producers to make sure that if anything doesn't actually fall through the cracks, we can help resolve it. Production managers, me, Rochelle, all of our lovelies, we help with schedules, with calendars, with a lot of the nitpicky notes that we send and receive, say from network, standards and practices, legal. We jump in on anything that people need us to sort of be the moral support or backbone to. So we don't necessarily have final say on things, but we can help back you up. And we're there to sort of be your cheerleader, but also to make sure that you don't get in trouble for something, because we generally have an idea of the overall schedule and we can help make decisions for that. Above us is the line producer, who is a great help and the top of the team leaders, and they get to deal with all of the fun numbers. So cost reports, helping with whoever might be hired, whoever might be freelanced, and how we allocate final say on time and sort of monetary placement throughout the entire production.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'd agree with that. I will say again, at Cartoon Network, it's a little different when it comes to like PAs, because when I was at other studios, PAs didn't really have to deal with records and stuff. But at Cartoon Network, a lot of the PA work is dealing with records, at least my experience at Cartoon Network. Along with what like Ashley said, like just basically, you know, assisting and helping the coordinators with whatever they need, the managers as well. Like I have my PAs help with credits and stuff like that too. And, you know, they do like the as broadcast scripts at the end, things like that. So they touch like pretty much little bits on every part of the production at every stage. And then post as well. I would say post is another thing that a lot of production people at Cartoon Network have to deal with, but at other studios, you don't touch the post process. So yeah, it's interesting based on, again, like if it's a flash show, if it's a traditional 2D show, if it's a CG show, it's completely different too. So yeah, but basically what Ash was explaining are the roles of the production people. Yeah.
Thank you both. That's like super helpful and super detailed explanation. I know a lot of people are always like, wait, what's the difference between these roles? And for sure, they're different at every studio. So,
yeah. And it could be a gray, you know, there's kind of like a gray zone too, because I know, again, at Cartoon Network, there's a DPA position, which that position is a digital production assistant. And a lot of their job is handling conforms. So they make sure that the storyboard matches the animatic. But I know when I was a PA, I was doing a lot of that work, you know, conforming and stuff like that, and helping to do pay stubs for the design coordinators, or, you know, for the designs to be shipped overseas, and a lot of help with shipping. I remember when I started out, I was literally, like when I was on the Simpsons movie, I was literally cutting and pasting. Like no joke, like cutting out designs on paper and pasting them onto model sheets. So anyway.
That's awesome. Well, so, you know, people thinking about coming into these jobs, do you feel like there should be a lot of knowledge about the production pipeline before you enter in this job, or do you feel like a lot of it is just learned on the job?
Yeah, I would say you don't really learn this in school. I learned, and a lot of people will learn through internships and, being PAs, and, you constantly grow. Again, I learned a lot just going over to Cartoon Network because I didn't have to deal with records and posts before. But when I came to Cartoon Network, I learned all about that. So it's constantly growing. Yeah, what about you, Ash?
I do think there's a lot you can't really learn while you're in school, while you're in college. Now, like there's really great stuff on the internet where some artists or current people in the industry, they've put up like an example of a pipeline. That's just fascinating. It's good to just acquaint yourself with it. But as soon as you're here, I think everyone just kind of has that very I want to learn personality. And I feel like everyone at Cartoon Network, uh, they're very willing to teach you. So, and it is sort of, you become proficient over time. You become proficient by just being in the groove of a crew. We won't expect you to be integrated completely within our pipeline from the day we hire you. We meld you into our production.
Yeah, like I would say too, I talked to a few students, and they said that they learned a lot about the production process during their internship, and they brought it back to them to their studio. And, we have to make our own animated film. So they kind of had their own team, and they delegated different jobs to, different members on their crew. So they kind of had their own little production, I guess. Back in my day, I had to do everything myself, like with help from a few friends, but it was nice to hear these interns actually like bringing that back, to and like making it work for them. So yeah, I think it's useful.
It's great. All of us were interns at some point, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good start. Do you guys feel like a deeper understanding of all of like the other roles on the show, not just production, but artists wise? Having a deep understanding of those jobs, does it help you do your job better?
I feel yes, just because I've seen it go both ways between all of our artists and with production, because it's just sort of this empathy. They're doing their hardest to make a really nice product. We're doing our hardest to make sure that it's recognized, that it's implemented correctly, that everyone's work is appreciated in an actual cartoon sometimes. It's wild to think about that, like, yeah, in a year, we make an episode of a cartoon. On paper, that's kind of really, it's really out there because there's so many moving parts and there's so many things. And sometimes you get irked, like, oh, a deadline was missed, but it's like, they're a specific talent. Production is also a very specific talent. Knowing that, like, oh, a colorist has to go through all these steps, that does take time, that does take effort. Oh, a boarder might be struggling here, but because I know the person, I know their process, I can understand that. And conversely, when artists see like, oh, sometimes they don't understand how hard it is for production to say, you turned something in and maybe it took us a long while to actually implement it. We have so many moving pieces. It just makes, I think, for a nicer atmosphere and a nicer working relationship when you can at least vaguely understand everybody's role in a crew. And then you can feel really good at like a premiere party and you actually sit by and you watch everyone's names scroll by in the credits and you're like, those are everybody I know and I love working with them.
Yeah, I think there is definitely like a mutual respect for each other when you do understand each other's roles. And, production is there to support the creative team. And we do know, like, one painting can take you months if you wanted to have months on it, and I know a lot of artists are very like much perfectionists, but sometimes we're like, it looks great and it's approved. So let's move on to the next piece. So, that's just something to be aware of. So it plays on both parties. Like the artists need to understand that there is a schedule, and the production people need to understand, like to design something or to create or to make a storyboard, it does take time, like sometimes it's a hard line between quality and quantity. So, that's kind of like where production comes in to help just organize and, just get the artist to be more like, okay, I can do this and I'm not going to be a perfectionist, because I do have artist friends that are like that. They're like, oh, I want to spend more time on this, but we just can't. I'm sorry.
Well, can you guys talk a little bit more about your backgrounds and how you first got into production and how you got to where you are?
Yeah. So I started, like I said, back in 2006. I started on the Simpsons movie. I was there. It was weird. I was there as a freelance PA. And I was like, what's freelance? I guess you just don't get all the benefits. Like you don't get 401k, you don't get the healthcare. Like, so I was like, okay, well, I need something a little more stable. So I'm going to continue to look. And that was, if you guys know anyone that's worked on that movie, it was really crazy. It's like a long episode of The Simpsons, but because it was about a year long. And anyway, yeah, there's a lot of overtime. Let's just say that. So I was looking for something else. I went over to Nickelodeon and I was a research assistant there for a bit. And I had interned there actually the year before. So they knew me there, which was great. But I became a research assistant on a preschool show. And then after that ended, I worked my way up to being a PA, and then I was like interested in art. So I actually took some tests, and the creator actually liked me and was like, yeah, I really like your test. So you can do some freelance. So I did some freelance background painting for a bit. And I was like, great, PA job is a great entry level into the industry. So I was doing background paint for a while, and then season 1 ended and season 2 was picking up. So my job was ending. So, but they wanted to keep me on. So I became a storybook artist, which basically is the book that's read to kids at preschools as part of the whole research process. So I was aware of all this because I was a research assistant, started out with that. And then from there, that job was ending because that's very, very like pre-production. That's before like the writing stage and writing the outlines and the scripts. So then they're like, oh, well, we're in need of timers. Do you want to learn sheet timing? And I'm like, sure, yeah. I remember getting these in college and I had no idea how to read these things. So sure, I'd love to learn. So I learned sheet timing for a bit, and then so that was for season 2. And then of course, the job ended, and there was the big real estate crash in 2008. So they were doing a lot of layoffs in the industry, and we happened to be victims of this whole layoff. Like it felt like everywhere in the industry they were laying people off left and right. It was like really hard. I knew friends that they ended up leaving the industry because it was just too much for them, too hard for them to find a job. So they're doing completely different, they're in completely different careers now. But I was like, oh yeah, I want to pursue the art side of things. And so I did that for a bit. And again, it was so hard. It wasn't like nowadays where, Netflix lit a fire under everyone's butts and, like everyone wants to do streaming and they're hiring like crazy everywhere. So it's a great time right now to get in. But so I was laid off for probably like 9 months, but I was doing freelance art, but I was like, this is hard. And so my friend over at Moonscoop was like, oh, hey, there's a PA job. Do you want to take that? And I was like, oh, I don't want to go back to an entry-level job. But at this point, I'm going to take anything. So I went back to being a PA, and then I felt like I just had to start over, which is okay. You know, you kind of have to reinvent yourself after a while. And so I was at Moonscoop for a bit there. I worked on Hero 108. I don't know if you guys know that show. It was a Flash show. And then again, they liked me, so they wanted to keep me around when that ended. And so I was doing all sorts of different things. Like I was a writer for a bit for Chloe's Closet. I wrote a couple episodes for that show. And then I went into like social media for a bit there for a couple months. They wanted to keep me up until Lalaloopsy started. So then that started about a month after I was hired as a social media person.
Really done like every job in this industry.
So I know, and I know this is long-winded, but so from there I was a coordinator on Lalaloopsy, and then I went on to a CG show. After that ended, I went on to a CG show called Strawberry Shortcake. And at the same time when I was at Moonscoop, because it's a non-union studio, they were great with letting me do freelance. So I did like prop design, and I did color. And so that was kind of cool, you know, to get that experience as well as freelancing at the time for other studios that I had freelanced for before during my little time off there from Nickelodeon. And then right when I was like a few months into Strawberry Shortcake was when I got the call from Cartoon Network, and I started there as a coordinator in the Flash department. I don't know if you guys remember the Flash department there. It was supposed to be like doing digital shorts, and we only did 2 shows. It was Mighty Magiswords and Go Tommy Go. I'm not mistaken. It's been so long. I'm like trying to remember all these names of these cartoons. And then the Flash department was kind of fading away from picking up new projects. So the producer told me, hey, they want to make Mighty Magiswords a series. Are you interested in working on that? And I'm like, of course I am, you know. So that's when I became a manager, was because, you know, it was going to series. So became a manager on that, worked on that for a few years, and Apple and Onion. So we're doing everything Flash related for the studio. And then from there, now I'm on the Fungies. So that's kind of like my journey so far. I'm sorry, it's so long-winded.
All good. Thank you. It's really cool that you have so many different experiences, and that really helps, you know, you in your current job to know all those different positions.
Yeah, I mean, I would say some people might think it's scatterbrained, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, it's like I feel like I do have a better understanding, at least, of, you know, each stage and what the jobs people have to endure every day, you know. So I understand, like, you know, how much time it will take to get things done. So yeah, it's useful.
Yeah. Ash?
Yeah, so Rochelle hopped everywhere, and I've been in one place for ever. When I went to college for illustration, technically I did all the courses for animation. I did not turn in my paperwork, so I'm technically not an animation major, but I could be like honorary. I only got the internship for Cartoon Network. Everywhere else ghosted me. But CN was super good. I was the first intern on Clarence when it was first greenlit. So we were a tiny crew of 5 people. But Keith Mack was the line producer at the time. He was super cool, super nice. He let me be really crafty during that time just because there wasn't too much going on. So I was making like a bunch of 3D cardboard things for them to bring into their pitches. I had to go back to school for a semester. And then before I was going to send out my resume to start looking for a job, Nate Finaro, who was in charge of the shorts department at the time, reached out to me because Keith was a really stand-up fellow and forwarded my name. I got that interview and I became a PA basically straight out of college in the shorts department, which is wild looking back on it retrospectively. And I'm just very, very grateful for that. I worked in shorts for about 2 years, and that was another tiny crew of technically only 3 production and 2 on-staff creatives. Everyone else was people becoming creators who have their pilots greenlit, and then just a swarm of freelancers. So very quickly, very fast, I got to see all of the pipeline, be involved in all of production, and kind of see everyone's jobs and duties artistically, like immediately. And I think that really hit home coming out of school, going like, oh my goodness, there's a lot more job descriptions that I realized didn't exist. And there are a lot of said jobs that I personally would not like to do myself as a professional artist. So that was very helpful for me and made me more confident in not being pressured to take certain tests artistically, just because being able to interact with all these really nice people, all these really nice creators, seeing what they're going through, it's like you take a step back and you try to put yourself in their shoes, and it's like, I don't think I'd be happy. So I was very content to just stay in production for shorts for as long as I could. And they were happy to keep me because I wasn't always trying to gun out of getting out of production, which isn't a bad thing. We always encourage, if you want to be an artist, be an artist. We always try to pave the way for you. After shorts, I moved up to coordinator on regular show for the final season. So I was there for all of their time and space. And that transitioned straight into the fake sizzle reel of Close Enough that we made for Comic-Con, and which was another wacky thing because we were essentially pretending that we had a whole season's worth of episodes before we had started the first episode. And we moved into the actual production of Close Enough. JG and his crew, by far, really, really great people, really awesome artists. Again, really hitting home to me. I do not want some of their jobs. I'm super happy just being around these people because they're just really, really genuinely cool and awesome people. I just love the atmosphere and I love being able to support them, which is what production is about. So great fit for me. Weird period where Close Enough was transitioning from being a half-hour episodic to a quarter-hour episodic. So I was being coordinator for that post and also helping Apple and Onion as a coordinator when they were transitioning out of, I think, the in-house Flash to strictly our now Canadian studio who's doing our animation. And they do wonderful stuff too. But I was doing double dealings on that for a long while. Then moved straight back into Close Enough, probably around the time when we knew that HBO Max was going to become a thing, and we were locked into just being a quarter hour again. And then at the beginning of this year, I started as manager on Apple and Onion, which retrospectively was one of the first shorts I worked on 7 years ago. And I knew George all that way back when he was still calling in from London to do various UK records for Apple. So it's all come full circle for me.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because when I was in the Flash department working on the Apple and Onion pilot, I was working with Ash. So it's really cool that
we have 7-year-old emails.
We got to work together. And when being in the Flash department, I learned what it's like to be the overseas studio. So that was a good experience for me too. Be nice to the overseas studios. That's what I learned.
Absolutely. Do you guys feel like it is necessary to have a degree to have a production job? And what do people study in school to get into these jobs?
Oh, well, I would say it's not necessary. And I'm sorry, I didn't talk about my background, my educational background, I went to Woodbury University and studied animation there. So, while, you know, of course, it doesn't hurt to have a degree in animation or illustration or film, even like business and communications, like it's certainly helpful. I would say probably one of the most helpful reasons of being an animation major is, especially at my school at Woodbury, they forced us basically to get an internship. In order to graduate, you need to have an internship. So that was a great way to network and meet people and to show the studio what you can do, you know? So yeah, while it's not necessary, I think it doesn't hurt.
Are there any programs that should be learned before you get into production?
Nothing aside from just knowing some of the art programs, because again, that sort of empathy, I respect your position, like generic Photoshop, maybe Illustrator, maybe Premiere. And even at that, just very basic. So if you are production, you can jump in a file and help tweak something or just check something. It's certainly helpful. We certainly don't ask our production people to do anything wild or major with those programs. It just helps that you have the technical knowledge of like Storyboard Pro, if you have access to that sort of things. Other file management programs like I think FileMaker or Shotgun or something like that. I'm not even sure if you can practice those sorts of things before you get into the industry. And I'm pretty sure some of those like Shotgun specifically, you need to wait because sometimes the IT has to amp it up to be specific for your crew. I think you just need to come in with a good attitude and willing to learn.
Yeah, I would say
Absolutely.
for FileMaker Pro as well, I don't think you can get your hands on that. And even if you did, it really varies from project to project. Like at Nickelodeon, we had, and even at, yeah, Cartoon Network too, we have the IT guys set up a specific FileMaker Pro just for your crew. And you can cater it to however you want. It's all customizable basically. So yeah, a lot of it's on the job. Like I wish I knew a little bit more Excel, but again, that's something you learn, you learn on the job. Excel is very useful if you want to be a producer though, because they deal with a lot of the budgets and finance and stuff. So, but it's something we're still learning. Oh, and like the schedules too are done in Excel. But again, that's stuff you can learn on the job. But like Ash said, it certainly doesn't hurt, especially like if you know Photoshop and Storyboard Pro.
Thanks, guys. So what do you guys look for when you see interns and PAs applying? Is there anything, any skills, anything you're looking for in the resume or cover letter?
I would say I like to see their enthusiasm come through, and I want to see that they actually really want to be there, not that they're just there because they want to be a creator. Like, I mean, that's a great ambition to have, but it's also nice that they want to learn production, you know? Aside from that, of course, it's like we always ask like they be attentive to detail and organized and, you know, all that stuff that, you know, you see on these job qualifications and job responsibilities. What about you, Ash?
I personally love clubs, whether you're a member, if you're an officer, even cooler. I love seeing hobbies. I like knowing that if you say want to become a creative, using production as a jumping off point, which I know a lot of people tend to try and become PAs to do. It's not that you love, say, like animation for animation's sake. You have something aside from your job that you can contribute to a story or you can contribute to the personality of the crew. Because sometimes we get a lot of resumes that look very, very similar and they're all very, very good. you're all very qualified, you're all really rad people, and sometimes it's only when you get in here and we kind of get this vibe from you, and it's like, oh, you'd really groove with our people because maybe you're super into video games, or we've got one or two crews that used to stick around to play D&D. Sometimes it is this sort of like, do you jive with us, which we can't really tell until the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because you can get a resume and a cover letter and it just sounds amazing. And then you meet these people and we're like, yeah, I didn't really get the feeling that they would, really mesh well with our crew. Like, so yeah, that's super important to actually, like, it's one thing to like know you can do the job, but also like personality wise, because well, when we were in the office, you're with these people more than you are with your families, you know? Again, nowadays it's different, but they still need to jive well, even during COVID times.
Do you guys have any advice for someone that is just getting into an internship or a PA job entering the industry the first time?
I guess, honestly, be yourself. You'll be happy. You'll certainly be happier being yourself. We're very open to all sorts. And you will find, I think everyone finds friends as long as you are your personality. And it just gets so hard. Production, art, the industry, it can be so stressful sometimes. And we will always accommodate your questions. We will always accommodate people who want to learn and try and move forward. So, I mean, hopefully A&O isn't listening too hard right now. I'm not scared to say close enough. My prod squad on that, they were in fact my best and favoriteest family. I met my very best friend Sartep on regular show. She was my co-coordinator for years. She's still my best friend, and like that just carries. And there's many times at CN where I've got through a stressful situation just because of the people, because I was a dork and they were a dork and we all meshed together in this great friendship. So, I mean, don't come into an internship or a PA and just try to be like the stellar worker and that's your only thing. Like, we've got plenty of people who could honestly do this job very, very well, but we want you to be you, because then we want to keep you because you're a cool person.
Yeah, and I always say, like, you got to do a really good job where you're at, because that will lead you to your next job. Basically all the jobs I've gotten in the industry are through people that I know. So, I mean, it's true, like networking works wonders. But yeah, and you want to be, like Ash was saying, like, if you have a good crew and if people have your back, they will recommend you. And I will also say, I love working on the Bungees, just to say. We have a great crew too. Honestly, I have the best production staff right now. Makes working from home so smooth. I love it. So thank you, team, if you're out there watching.
Speaking of networking, do you have any tips on that, especially for people that are watching that might be trying to transition into this career? They might not be able to get an internship at this point.
For me, I actually wrote a paper about networking back in college. But I remember during my first few years in the industry, I was like a social butterfly, like crazy. I would plan my own networking parties, actually. So I would basically tell my coworkers, hey, I want to throw a party, like, or, get together. Let's meet here at like Yard House or something, or Barney's Beanery, and bring all your friends too. So yeah, we'd all just invite everyone we know, and it would just be really fun, meet new people, see where people are at in the industry, see who's hiring. I'd also go back in the day when they let us to the Animation Guild's holiday parties. Have you guys been to those?
Yes, they're fun.
Yeah, they're so fun. Now I think you have to be an actual like union, a union worker to be able to go, unfortunately, unless you go as someone's guest. But anyway, I went to my first one back in college, and that was a great place too, to just meet people and see what was going on in the industry. It's important to just also keep up with your peers and see what's going on at other studios, you know, keep in touch with old coworkers and former classmates, you know. There's a lot to be said for, again, being kind to one another and letting people know, hey, there's a job opening, and you're really great to work with. Let's, you know, you want to try this out. So I've helped a lot of my friends get jobs. They've helped me get jobs. So, you know, it's just mutually beneficial.
Want to get into the Q&A because we've gotten so much good information out of this panel that I want to be sure we're answering some of the questions that we got in here. So we have, let's see, someone asked if it is a requirement to be multilingual since you guys are working with overseas companies. Is that a requirement in production?
No.
Yeah.
They have, usually they have translators on their end. They all speak English very well, or, you know, they're the ones I would say on that side, they need to be more multilingual. But with us here, no, it's not a requirement.
When do you feel a coordinator is ready to move up to PM?
Honestly, when there's a position open. The thing is, there's only a finite amount of crews. They have their schedules. Sometimes it's just not in the right cycle. And unfortunately, there's some coordinators who've been in their same position for a very long time. And they're very competent, and nothing's just really opened up. And there's always, I think, sort of a joke of like, you want someone high to be successful, because then if they get promoted, it starts a domino effect. And it allows, like, I think CN's pretty good about promoting within and then looking to the interns, looking to recommendations for the lowest position to be filled again. But I think all of our coordinators are pretty competent. It's again, proficiency from doing the job for a little while, and then you just have to wait for the opportunity to actually be there.
Yeah, there's that. And I know a lot of people too, like even you, Ash, people that have filled in a lot for other people being gone or working on multiple projects, you know, it just, they really shine, and your boss and their boss can see that, wow, this person is very competent and can do the job. So it's an easy decision to be made.
Is there anything you wish you knew before working in production?
It can be so stressful. It can be as stressful or even more than artists. But the people honestly make it worth it because I want to see them succeed. But it's also, in shorts, I think when I first started in this industry, everyone assumed that since I came from an art school, I'd obviously want to transition into art. For me personally, I feel way more confident in saying, absolutely not, thank you very much, but I appreciate the insight and the go ahead, might I recommend a different friend for you? And, you know, that's totally okay. I still draw in my free time. I'm still artist for me, but I know a lot of people mean well. You don't have to be an artist to be in animation. That's totally fine. We got a lot of cool people here doing a lot of things that aren't art.
Yeah, I remember back in school, my teachers were like, are you sure you want to get in the industry? So they were kind of preparing us for it. They're like, it's a lot of hours. It could be really stressful. Depending on which project you're on, you're not treated the best, sadly. But, you know, you just work through it, and you discover quickly if this is the right industry for you. And like Ash was saying, the people honestly make it great. I wanted to be in fashion before this, before I changed my major to animation. And I was just like, I don't like these fashion people. They just all want to be models and they're crazy stuck up. But these animation folks, yes, these are my people, you know, they're all dorks like me too. So I found my people, and that's what keeps me going, I would say.
Are production roles often behind a computer, or are you traveling at all, or do you get to be more active? I think that's a little bit of a tricky one I think other than our current COVID situation.
I mean, usually we're behind a computer, especially artists, but production people, what's great, you know, when we were in-house, being a production person, you have to get off your seat a lot more to talk to people and, you know, tell them, hey, this is what I need, or hey, this came in, can you look at this? So there's a lot more walking around and even going to like different departments. You have to go to different floors, or, you know, to talk to like legal or accounting or whatever it is. You know, you can, and even like we were in a lot more meetings than artists. So, you know, so there is that. And then regarding travel, I would say if you're lucky enough as a manager to go to Korea or wherever your overseas studio is, that's basically the only way we would travel. Oh, if there is like the PAs, they will go to an outside record studio or an outside post house, and that I guess can be called travel to some people. It's a way to get out of the office anyway. So that's the extent, basically. Ash, did you travel somewhere? I thought you might have gone somewhere for.
No, I had to do a lot of outhouse record studios. I would go to the color printers for like our festival submissions to pick up materials, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Let's see, maybe one more question before we do our final question. What's the bigger challenge, dealing with technical aspects of production or the variety of people and personalities?
Good question. Again, depends on the project. With my great crew right now, I don't have to deal with difficult people. So I would say, yeah, the technical thing though, or technical issues, those can be easily fixed, I would say. You know, we have our IT support, they can help us through the technical issues. And if there's something like, if you don't know how to do something in Photoshop or Storyboard Pro, you can ask someone. You know, a lot of people ask me for Photoshop tweaking, or how do you do something in Photoshop? So I'm like, okay, do it this way. But dealing with people, especially because I've been on some projects in the past that I've worked with some difficult people, that you can't really change. So you just have to, again, they're kind of like family. You just have to deal with them and make the most of it and try to get along.
Anything to add, Ash, or
I mean, in technical specs, I guess if like a schedule is behind or something, like that does lead back to a person, and that probably does lead back to a personality trait. And again, you deal with it as you come. And I feel like I'd like to think we've gotten fairly good at being able to smooth out those things, or at least bring them up nicely and diplomatically, and still get a cartoon out eventually, which again, very wild that we've got all these people on this crew. We've got people outside of the studio making a cartoon. The logistics of it, the math and the involvement in it is really, really intense. So it's cool that it all comes together somehow.
I'm going to move on to the final question. Thank you guys again for being here and taking time from your busy schedules today. I ask this at the end of every webinar. What's the most important piece of advice you'd give an aspiring artist, and in this case, production person? It can be art, it can be life related.
I've got two.
Go for it.
And I think we've already kind of dealt with the first one. And so one, it's the people, not the project. You can be on a very mediocre sort of thing at a studio, but honestly, your crewmates can be just fantastically super. And that makes you stay. And you guys have a great time. And as long as you're happy, then I mean, who cares? You'll always have something else to move on to. And you'll make the connections and you'll all scatter to the winds. And then they'll help you, support you, and you can help them and support them. So the industry is full of friends. And I encourage everyone to maintain those friendships. And then number two, it's you're never too old to join this industry. I can't remember who I was discussing this recently, but it's like I know people who are just now getting out of school and they're like going straight into an art job and excellent, fantastic, great for them. That's the dream. But then we also know like these really cool old people who are just now getting into the industry and they've got all these different perspectives and they're still super talented. And it's like, oh my gosh, anyone from any age, any creed, any personality can jump right in and they can just slot right into our shenanigans very easily, very quick. And we're just happy to accept and be here. So I guess never give up.
Yeah, I mean, piggybacking on what Ash said, again, I've said it before, like, but just be kind to everyone. Again, you never know who could be your boss someday. And you want to do a good job where you're at and have people that you're working with now recommending you for the next thing. And that's interesting, Ash, that you were talking about older people getting in the industry, because I feel like it's such a young person's industry. So that's really encouraging.
I love it when older people come in. They've got
I do too.
Different, amazing
I feel like
insights.
I'm one of the oldest people at the studio.
They're all,
I'm not even that old.
Always Robert Alvarez.
That's true.
Robert's
That's
amazing.
me. Him and Sandy. But yeah, again, sorry, my dog just ran to me. Yeah, just be kind to people. That's the big thing. And again, that's why I like the Fungies. Like they teach about kindness and being courteous and respectful. So, good life lessons to have.
Well, thank you both for taking time from your super crazy production schedules to be here. Really appreciate it. I want to thank my team for helping me field questions and run this webinar. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. For future panels and more information about Cartoon Network Studios recruiting, please check out our website, cartoonnetworkstudios.com, and also our Twitter and Instagram pages, CNS_recruiting. That's like Cartoon Network Studios recruiting. Thank you all. This is wonderful, and we'll see you next time.
yay.
Yay!